It was little noted outside the United States last year, but in November, just before the country marked the 50th anniversary of the assassination of President Kennedy, it marked the 150th anniversary of the Gettysburg Address.
77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation.
An actor brought President Abraham Lincoln's words back to life, 10 short sentences now etched in the country's collective memory. A speech designed to tell Americans that the sacrifices made in the Civil War should only serve to reinforce the principles of equality enshrined in the Declaration of Independence.
That this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
The United States is proud of its democracy, forged in the country's 1776 breakup with Britain, its Civil War of the 1860s, and the civil rights struggles of the last century that advanced the process of helping all citizens to enjoy at least a voice in the country's governing system. But today, while America's leaders assert the strength of democracy,
the state of our union is stronger.
Many Americans believe the country is, in fact, facing a democratic crisis.
We have to live with it, and we have to be honest about it.
Tom Carruthers of Washington's Carnegie Endowment for International Peace has been tracking the state of democracy around the world for decades.
Once it becomes a war, compromise is hard. But once you have this polarization, a system designed for consensus gets captured by certain groups that use it in the wrong ways.
That American democracy is in crisis is demonstrated by President Obama's confounding relationship with Republicans in the U.S. Congress. Neither the president nor the new young breed of conservative Republicans has managed to break a polarized logjam in Washington. It's left seasoned analysts shaking their heads over the refusal of a new generation of politicians to engage in the age-old art of compromise.
I appreciate you didn't call me up and give me the old Texas twist.
I don't do that. I just talk to my friends once in a while about...
It's not like the days of yore when leaders like President Lyndon Johnson would spend hours on the telephone cajoling, arm-twisting and enticing his opponents to work with him. Conversations captured on tapes, the likes of which no longer occur in Washington. And that's not just the fault of the politicians themselves. It's also down to an electoral system that has proved less robust than Americans had hoped and more susceptible to result rigging than Americans had feared. The election of 2000 that pitted George W. Bush against then Vice President Al Gore offered the first inkling that in a close-fought race, America's electoral system wasn't up to the test. Remember the hanging chads, the ballot papers in Florida that were the subject of a recount and a legal battle that ended up being resolved by the Supreme Court? Today, America is confronting a new political reality after a deliberate reorganization of the electoral map in some states to create a raft of new, safe constituencies for conservative Republicans who support the ideologically driven Tea Party movement.
When you have, in a sense, an extreme element in a party, what it needs above all to do is to cultivate and to fire up its base with the hope that they will then gradually take over more space in the political spectrum. And so this more conservative wing is actually content to live with 20 or 30% as long as they feel they can feed that base and really build them into a sort of untouchable constituency.
So events like last year's government shutdown, which closed public services in the US for 2 weeks, keep happening, along with a failure to compromise and advance the country's strategic goals. All at a time when the president continues to travel overseas and, unlike his counterparts from developing nations like China or Russia, passes judgment on moves towards global democratization.
President Sall, I want to commend you for the ambitious reforms that you're pursuing to strengthen democratic governance. More openness, more transparency, more accountability. I know it's hard, but it's absolutely necessary both politically and economically.
It all adds up, says analyst Tom Carruthers, to an America that fails to confront problems with the same democratic system that it still calls a role model.
I think it's a very significant problem, but I think it's also one that many American democracy promoters don't yet fully recognize. Often these are people who really, with the best of intentions, go abroad believing that, sure, our system is troubled, but we still have some good things to share, which is true, but they haven't really fully taken on board just how troubled our system is and how much more credible I think they would be in the world if they were to offer other people lessons of our own failure in some instances.
There is no sign of that change occurring, and lots more anniversaries ahead for Americans to mark the establishment of a democratic republic that today may not be as governable as it was, and therefore not as desirable to emulate. Simon Marks, Washington.
God bless America.
Know more. eNCA.com